Hello, everyone. What are you doing to track your activity? When you're in business for yourself, you have a lot of stuff to do, right? In any given day. And what I want to talk about today is how you're tracking the most important activity that's going to drive the needle towards where you're actually trying to go. So we're looking at specifically activity that's actually directed, that's going to have a direct impact on moving the needle towards the direction you actually want to go in. So let's talk about that. If you are here and you are a business owner, you are in the right place. If you operate a family business or any business at all, this show is for you. It's to help create some time wealth, some white space on your calendar, and so we all have a time wealthy advantage. Entrepreneurs, business owners, family business owners, this show is for you. So welcome. My name is Mark Dolfini, and this is the show. So what are you doing to track your activity? What I refer to when I'm referencing this in terms of metrics, and I say, okay, well, what are your lead metrics? What are your lag metrics? Think about this in this particular instance. Like, your lead metrics are not necessarily around your lead generation, although they could be, but they're generally, you're going to have your lead metrics are specifically tied to your actions and your activity. Okay, so think about that for a second. If I was going to go and pick up, let's say I was going to pick up the phone and do 25 cold calls. That would be activity that I can control. Does that make sense? So when I'm looking at lead metrics, those are the things that are specifically tied to the actions and activities that will have a direct impact on where I'm trying to go. So in other words, let's say I'm trying to pick up 100 new clients. And so my metric, let's say I've got 41. So I'm trying to get from 41 to 100. Okay, so I've got 59 contracts, new contracts I need to sign, or 59 new clients, or whatever it is. Okay, so let's say it's 59 new contracts. So I know that I'm going to have to pick up the phone based on because I've tracked my data. I know that I'm going to have to pick up the phone at least 1,000 times to get 100 appointments. Okay, now that doesn't mean I'm going to get 100 sales, but I'm going to get at least 100 appointments. Now, out of those 100 appointments, because again, I've tracked my metrics, I know that I'm going to get 10 clients. Okay, so if I know that I'm going to get 10 clients from 100 appointments, and I'm going to get 100 appointments out of 1,000 calls, right, then it just becomes a math problem, right? Then I know, well, okay, so if I pick up and call call 5,000 people, right, now I'm going to get closer to my 50. Basically, what did I say? We have 41 clients. We need 59, so we'd have to do it 6,000 times. So we're going to have 6,000 calls, right, to pick up 600, make 600 appointments to have 60 sales, right? Now, I'm just using this as an example. Your mileage may vary. You may have a much better closing percentage, and you may have one that's lower. It just depends on other factors. But this is where where you need to know your numbers from that perspective. And now, so let's again, just for the teaching point of lead metrics. Your lead metrics are your actions, your activities. That could be, how many sales letters did you send out, right? That would be an activity. How many cold calls did you make? That would be an activity, right? How many emails did you send out? Now, some of that could be, and I mean specifically, tied to lead generation, not like, hey, I returned an email, from a friend. I'm talking about how many emails did I send out that had a lead generation, that had a call to action around that. I recently read a book called Magnetic Marketing by Dan Kennedy. And if you have not read that book, I don't have the book handy, otherwise I'd show it to you. But that book, it was really, really good in a lot of ways. I would really recommend it in terms of bringing your marketing and bringing your lead gen to a whole other level. And one of the things that I really loved about what he said was, don't send out anything unless it's got some sort of call to action. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to ask for a sale every single time, but it does drive them towards some sort of lead magnet or something where you're offering them value. And I think that makes so much sense, because there's so much stuff that's being put out there that is just branding. And he makes such a valid point, in that we as small business operators, we tend to see like what Coca-Cola's doing, what Pepsi's doing, what Walmart is doing, and we want to be like them. and they just put out a bunch of stuff, right? They just put out ads, and it makes us laugh, makes us cry, hits an emotion, but it doesn't want to make us run out and buy a Coke, buy a Pepsi. Think of the Goodyear blimp. He used that scenario in the Magnetic Marketing book, where Goodyear floats over a football game, hangs around for a while, and then flies away, with the hopes that someone is going to at some point remember Goodyear when it comes to buying a tire. And I'm almost ashamed to admit, because the Goodyear blimp, I never recognized it. It was just always called that. For years into my adult life, I never connected the Goodyear blimp with Goodyear tires. I mean, that is horrible branding. Horrible branding. Like, whose fault is that? I'm not completely, no, I'm no Rhodes Scholar, but I'm a fairly intelligent individual, and it took me a while to make that connection. That's because nothing about that connected me to tires. And I usually buy Michelin, right? Or whatever happens to be the best value. I'm not necessarily brand loyal when it comes to that. So is their marketing even working, or their branding even working because of the Goodyear blimp? I don't know. I don't know what it costs, but I can tell you it's not effective. It's not working on me anyway. So that's why I'm thinking, does it work on you? Does the Goodyear blimp make you think of running out and buying tires when the time comes to buy tires? Be honest. Put that in the comments. I'd like to know. But here's what I want you to start to think about is, when you're doing the, man, I got a bite right there. I think we got mosquitoes in our backyard. But the thing that's really funny is, we have a lot of different lead metrics that we're doing, but we're not even really tracking that activity. So that is really, really important, that when you have these lead metrics that come up, that you're actually tracking the activity, so you know where your lag metrics are actually originating from. The lag metrics are the result of the activity. So if you get 10 sales, you could legit track it back to where that lead came from, right? That would be tracking your lag metrics. The lag metrics are the result of the activity. Does that make sense? So your lead metrics are your actions and your activities, and generally the things that you're putting on your calendar every morning, or basically you should be putting them on the night before at least, and where you're coming up with your daily 5, and they should be no more than 5 very specific things that will move the needle towards your goal, towards where you're actually trying to go. So this is what I'm suggesting is start coming up with, first and foremost, you got to know where you want to go. Like, what is the goal? If it's to get 100 new clients, great. That's a great place to start. That's your goal. So now, what's the actions and activities that you're going to do to line up towards that, right? Maybe you're going to send out, maybe you've got a newsletter that you can create and start sending that out. That's going to have some specific call to actions and some specific things that you can drive to your clients. Now, again, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but I want you to start to think about where it is that you want to go, and start creating a simple metric tracker for your most critical items, for the most critical activities that are going on in your business. And I mean very, very specific things. So I'm going to wrap this up here. I'm going to keep this video short. But in the 4 core functions of business, you have lead generation, you have sales, you have operations, and you have accounting. And you can have both lead metrics and lag metrics for all 4 of those core functions. I would say for most people that watch this show, you're struggling for systems. You're looking for some systems to try to get some opened up bandwidth. And recently I saw and I get it. I understand why this person did it. I'm not here to put them on blast, but they mentioned that you shouldn't even try to systematize unless you're bringing in revenues at least 10 grand a month. And man, I just think that's completely wrong. I think that's such bad advice, because if you don't ever think to start to systematize or bring some other things in when you're still trying to do all 4 core functions of your business, you're never going to get to a spot where you can actually start to extract yourself from the business. You have to start thinking about that stuff early. Don't worry about scalability per se, but you do have to start to systematize and get yourself and extract yourself from those things early on, so that you can get to that next level. Some of you are never, ever, ever going to be great bookkeepers, and you shouldn't try. Some of you are never, ever, ever going to be great salespeople, and you shouldn't try. I would say like give those things, like you can be good enough to a certain point, right? And I'm not saying you shouldn't try to ever be great. I'm just saying, like you just like, hey, look, sales isn't my bag. I'm not even interested in sales. I don't even like sales. Leads come in, I kind of tell them what I do. They like the product because the product is really good. It basically sells itself. I don't have a salesman because I don't really need it. Okay, that makes sense. That makes total sense, right? Or from the accounting function and the bookkeeping function, you don't consider yourself a numbers person. Okay, that's fine. That lets you off the hook a little bit, but at the end of the day, business is measured by the metrics that are created. So you are going to have to be a numbers person to a certain degree, but I don't want to make you a full charge bookkeeper. I'm not trying to make you into a CPA. I don't need you to know everything there is to know about tax law, right? But that's why you have to hire and bring in certain experts that know what they're going to do. You can bring in and hire a sales trainer to create a sales staff for you, right? If you don't necessarily need to do that. And again, maybe the sales function is pretty much non-existent. You don't really have to do much except make sure you've got plenty of leads coming in so that the sales process takes care of itself to a certain degree. And there's always some selling, but not some of it can be somewhat automated and some of it has to be done by a human. But all I'm saying here is that if you never, again, it's the whole analogy of, playing. It's like, well, I don't want to teach you how to play chess, so I'm going to teach you how to play checkers. That makes no sense. They are two completely different games. So I do want you to start to think about the systems part of it, especially where you become the bottleneck for information. And this is the litmus test that I want you to think about. Anytime information has to flow through you, in order for something to happen, you should be looking to either automate it or delegate it to someone else, preferably automating it first and then delegating it second. The reason why is automation is much more consistent than delegation. And generally, if you already have an inefficient organization, hiring people into an inefficient organization only magnifies the inefficiencies. If you have an efficient organization because you have systems in place, that tends to magnify the efficiencies. So just to wrap this up, put a neat little bow on it, start to create a simple metric tracker on, it can be in Excel, it can be anything around the 4 core functions of business: lead gen, sales, operations, accounting. In fact, I'm going to put one on Strategic Boardroom. In fact, I will do that. I'm going to create one. I'll just create a template. Go to Strategic Boardroom. You can download it for free. I'll put it in the resources area. You won't even have to enter in your email address. You can just go there, download it for free, and you can use it to your heart's content and modify it and use it any way you want. But use that and start to track your metrics and keep track of them every day. Like, make sure, especially if you are trying to grow your company, your focus needs to be on lead generation. So that's all I have for today, folks. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Of course, see you next time.